Good evening. This is Impact 2021. My name is Nathaniel, and this is our conversation that we have where we go through social topics, uh, topics of recent topics, and where we have our discussion, our ongoing discussion. We started this with social justice. We talk about things from different perspectives. Sometimes from the church perspective, sometimes from the perspective of men or women and African Americans and different things that are going on in society. So we're looking at this week to continue on the conversation that we started last week, or that we set up last week. And so one of the things I always want to remind is that this is a conversation, and you have the ability to type your questions in and type comments into the comment section. And as they are seen, they will be discussed. And so this is a format where you are able to bring up what you want to, and we definitely encourage participation. And so let's get into it and where we are. And so basically over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about basically the role of the church, and the role of the church when it comes to the social movement, the social justice movement, and the participation of the church and some of the hurdles that maybe some people, Christians, have when thinking about participating in the social justice movement. Some of the potential conflicts that people think, some of the potential stay in your lane, mind your business type of situations that we have. Well, we've highlighted different organizations, different conventions, different bodies that have the church, and some of their actions that they've done towards different groups of people. We've talked to pastors and we've talked to people who have basically talked about their positioning. Should we let people who are unchurched or who we've considered in the past anti-church walk with us in the movement? Should we stay away from the movement because we may offend some others and do things such as that? And so what we're looking for now is a continuation of the conversation, because what we need and what we're looking to do here is to come to some understandings about limiting ourselves as Christians, limiting ourselves as African Americans, or Black Christians, or the Black church, I will say, limiting ourselves on what we can do based on our own hangups, of the people who we may be trying to help, or people who may be trying to help us, or the people who we may need to walk with, or the people that we want to bring in or not bring in to our circles, to our churches. And so that's the constant conversation that we have. And that's the conversation that we've been looking at. One of the things that I've loved that we've been able to talk about recently was that the consensus has generally been that everyone is welcome into the house of God. And so that when we're looking at social justice, when we're looking at fighting for change, you're looking at it from a twofold. We're able to go out and join the movement and be part of the movement and be the movement, and join with other people. And we're also able to bring those people in, if they want, into the church setting and to have an understanding of Christ and God. And so there is no conflict there. Like one of the things that was said, we work with everybody. We go to work and we have all different types of dynamics of people, and you're okay as long as you're getting that paycheck. So then how come you can't worship and participate in society from the religious standpoint with all different types of people? Why is there a big hang up and a conflict there? And so we were looking to have a guest today. Looks like we're having a little hang up there. But as soon as we can, hopefully we'll get them in here. But if not, it's okay. We'll continue on with our conversation. And again, I remind everyone that you can type in a question and a comment into the section. So 2 things that we'll hit on today, and we'll just go right to it. Number 1, voting rights. As we've talked about, there's the HR 1 bill or proposal resolution is technically what it's called, that's in the House right now, that's looking towards expanding, not even expanding, ensuring voting rights for people, especially African Americans or Black and brown people who've been targeted by over 200 different bills that are in legislation right now in state houses all across the country. And so what we've done is effectively to ensure that we still have a say, that people of color still have a say, that people of color can pick political leaders, that people of color can influence laws that are being made through voting, to ensure that we still have that power. This bill has been put out. And so twofold. One, if it gets passed, it is a responsibility that we have to continue to be involved in the process, in the voting process. I know a lot of people say, man, I'm not political, man. I don't really get into politics. I don't want to do this. It's just all bad and whatnot. And it's great to say. It's fine. I don't have any qualms with that. But what's important is that you still make your voice known and heard through the voting process. You don't have to sit there and watch CNN and MSNBC and Fox News all day. But when it comes time to when it comes time to vote, making sure that you vote. They look at the rolls and the voting rolls. They look at the voting rolls and they look at the numbers. And if your community is not showing that you participate in the process, that means your community is not talking. And so when you want to talk with your actual voice, the leaders, the politicians don't have to listen. Because when it comes down to it, you don't have any power or any say because you're not going to go to the polls. And so why is that important? Because one, when it's time to pick those individuals, who have say when we have social justice issues. So, for example, when it comes time for our sheriff, who is going to be over the jails, the local jails. When it comes time for the prosecutors and the district attorneys, those people who are voted in. Those are the people who are going to make the decisions when it comes to injustice situations. When we are sitting back saying, well, this person needs to be prosecuted or we need to be protected, that's going to come into their office. And so we need to have our voices heard. And even more so, if a politician knows, hey, this group votes, I need to listen to them when they speak. And so when we have concerns, they'll listen to them. Or they'll be forced to listen to them. We do have a comment that says, we must have an open, honest, and frank conversation about white supremacy and the movement to limit voting. Yeah, we do. We need to, unfortunately, we got some people, Black people, Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina, Black gentleman, who said that the problem that we have is not white supremacy, it's woke supremacy. And woke supremacy is actually the danger. He's been, for people who know, he's been raked over the coals for that. And I'm just be frank with it, for that significantly ignorant comment that he made. And that is because to ignore white supremacy and then look at woke supremacy, you're ignoring what happened on January 6th and the actual people who lost their lives on January 6th. But even more so, you're ignoring the whole systematic framework for what we're complaining about, for what we're fighting against. And so as a Black person, what you're doing is you're giving cover to white supremacy by saying that it does not even that it does not exist, but that it's not a problem, and that this woke movement that people are talking about is a bigger threat and a bigger problem. And so, yeah, we need to have that conversation. And there needs to be an understanding. And it rolls into the second thing, is that we're not alone in this fight. This is not as much as this is a black-white fight, it's not a black-white fight. This is a right-wrong fight. There are plenty of white people who are on the same side of equality and fairness. They're not plenty, but there are a couple of Black people like Tim Scott, and I'm be frank with you, that are on the side of bigotry and white supremacy. And he's made that clear. That's not my words, that are his. It's not a problem. So that means he's complicit with it. And so this is a diverse fight. And even so, and one of the reasons I say that is because this anti-Asian movement, this hate against Asian Americans, and the whole gambit, whether you're talking about Pacific Island Asians, South Asians, Southeastern Asians, all the whole group. And to be truthful, I know that as African Americans, and I'll talk in kind of my terms, there's been a complicated relationship sometimes when it comes to African Americans and it comes to different Asian groups. Let's be honest with you, from starting different wars in the North Korean War, Vietnam War, many of us know of families who were forged there, Black in Vietnam or Black and Korean families who were then brought back here. So there's the love side of it, and then there's the hate side when we talk about many of the businesses and many of the individuals in our communities where there's been animosity because of how we're treated by certain individuals from the Asian community. So there's always been, not always been, but I know as long as I've been alive, there's been an interesting dynamic there, where sometimes, even though we're both technically minority groups, we're not necessarily on the same page. Like, we're not looking at each other the same way. As they call the Asians a model minority, they definitely don't call Black people anywhere close to that type of situation. And there's stereotypes that all Asians are wealthy and rich. They come over here, they got money. And that stereotype isn't true. And so it pits us against each other. And so we've had a complicated relationship. What's been great, though, is that as this thing has gone on, there's been reports saying that the Asian community has sat back and looked and said, hey, man, for the most part, the Black community has had our back, that we know that it's a similar fight, that they actually, that we fall into the same bucket. So when we're saying the Black and brown, that we're also talking about them. I think it's critically important for us to understand that we're not fighting for ourselves alone. We're fighting for everyone. And so, rights for Black people, equal rights for Black people is equal rights for everyone. We have another comment. And since I was beating up on Tim Scott, we can get some chiming in. So Scott, I believe, agrees with white supremacy and embraces white supremacy. People like him truly believe that white ice is colder. Yes, yeah. For those who don't understand the reference, the white ice is colder. It's commonly used. Ice is ice. It freezes at the same degrees, but some people believe that if it comes from a white person, somehow it's just colder. It's just better. And so, yes, and I'll go back on that. The danger of what people like Scott says, and there's many others that we know who fall into that category. The danger of what they do is that they give cover. They give cover, they give excuses for some of the people to do what they do. And when people sit back and they have racist policies and they have racist opinions, but they sit back and they say, well, I got my Black friend. And, well, I got this Black guy who says it's not that bad. Then that gives them cover. Mentally, they feel better about themselves. Black guy said I'm cool, so I'm cool. I'm not, But it also tries to give them cover in front of other people. Well, I got the one. And so the danger in that is, for whatever reason, these people decide that they want to get on board with going against white supremacy. It's crazy. But, the problem that I have is that when we talk about different races, we talk about Black people, we talk about brown people, we're not monolithic. There's a bunch of different ideas. There's a bunch of different thought processes. I know I talk with my friends all the time, and I often come from a different thought process than some of them come from. But what is going to be consistent is that I care about the well-being of Black people, and you're not going to sit back and say, well, here, whatever Nathaniel is going to say, I know it's going to be in line with what I see on, the super conservative network or the super hateful networks, let's say. And so you can't, for someone like Scott, you know exactly what he's going to say when an event happens. Whatever he says is going to be exactly what. And I'll be frank again. This is not a political commentary, but sometimes it just falls that way, or it seems to fall that way. So whatever Scott is going to say, you can be guaranteed it's going to be what Fox told him to say, what Fox News told him to say, or whatever the lead person for that group tells him to say. I mean, you're just going to parrot. I mean, you're going to parrot off of what they're going to say. There should be some diversity of thought there. Sometimes you can agree with what they're talking about on certain issues. But every time something negative happens to a Black person, you shouldn't be just sitting there agreeing with their thoughts that we're at fault, or that we're the problem, or that we're the issue. When you see people run up into the White House with Confederate flags, when you see a police officer who is there, or a security officer who is there being called the N-word, and then you sit back and say, well, woke supremacy isn't a problem. When you see a police officer who loses their life, and you say, well, woke supremacy isn't a problem, that's systematically, you're just sitting there, decide that you're going to give these people cover. And that is definitely turning your back on your brown and Black brothers and sisters. I mean, it's no more deeper than that. Another comment: many other minority communities make their livelihoods off of the Black communities. They should want the best for Blacks. If the Black communities do, they will do well. That's interesting. It's interesting because we talk about our interconnectedness of communities, but I think that's a good point to sit back and say that there are other communities that just benefit purely, not purely, but they benefit significantly off of the Black community. And you see some kind of acknowledgments of that now. You see acknowledgments of companies who've been selling products into the Black community, but have never really put back into the Black community, or never really even invested in making sure that those products are good for us. And you're seeing some backlash from that. You see backlash now when it comes to, what they've been doing, what people have been doing for a long time, which is capitalizing on Blackness, on the culture, on the music. They're coming at people. There's a new term. It's not a new term. Oh man, I just lost it. But it's a term that they're now using when they're talking about some of these Black artists. I mean, it's a lot of times it's young women who have been darkening their skin to make themselves look more ethnic, to kind of appeal to that crowd. And so there's been many things when they're talking about just stylistically what you're doing. But what you're doing is you're doing well for yourself, but you're taking advantage of people, and then you're not necessarily making sure or wanting that community to do well. It's one thing if I sat back and I again, one of the issues that I know growing up that I saw with some of the people in the Asian community is that, you're going to put your store in our neighborhood. We are going to purchase items from your store, but yet you're going to treat us bad and call us names and watch us as we go around the store and think that we're such criminals in the way that you treat us. Why are you watching me so hard? You know that I come here every day, or I come here every week to purchase, and I put money in your pocket. Your kids are going to school because of the money that I'm giving you. You need to treat us with respect. And that was one of the things that happened. You would see it a lot. I experienced it growing up. You see it a lot with different people. So why are you, going back to the question, why are you making your livelihood off of the Black community, but you don't want to see greatness out of the Black community, and you are so mean and rude? You're literally biting the hand that feeds you. But I guess because it's not a situation where you're lower than the hand, you're equal with the hand. You don't mind. We usually say don't bite the hand that feeds you, just because the hand that feeds you is above you. But we're feeding communities and people are biting our hand, and it's because they don't have any fear against us because of the way society is set up. And so that's generally where we are. And so then how does that come into play with the church? Like, is that really our business? Should the church really be going out there, trying to doing what we're doing? Now, we know the Black church. Do we need to get involved with sticking in this voting situation? Do we need to really get involved more politically when it comes to voting? And do we need to get involved when it comes to the anti-Asian sentiment that's been going on? The anti-Asian sentiment that was really put into place by the previous president, starting with the whole COVID-19, being really disparaging against them with the virus. Do we need to get involved in that? Is that our fight? Or do we need to sit back and be like, it seems like an obvious question where people are like, oh, we're the church. We should be taking care of everyone. We should be fighting for everyone's rights. But if you've been here before, or if you've been here long enough in these conversations, you'll see that everybody doesn't think that way. That some people think it's mind your business. Your community deals with your problems. My community deals with my problems. And so as much as, to me, it seems like there's an obvious answer, the reason that we bring people on and the reason that we have these conversations is because clearly it's not. Clearly there's people who think that this is not we're not all on the same team. I was about to say all in the same gang. That was a church. That was a song we used to sing back in the day. We got another comment here where it says, the church must be important. The church must be important if efforts are being made to limit the impact of the church. That's true, especially with the voting. Significantly with the voting, they are targeting the church. So just as a reminder, if you're not aware of some of the legislation that's going on, specifically in different places like Georgia, Georgia has decided that they want to limit the number of weekend voting days. So for early voting, they want to limit the number of days that you can vote early on the weekend. And they want to make sure that the last Sunday of the early voting is no longer a day that people can vote. So the last Sunday, which is historically one of the days that they call Souls to the Polls, they want to make sure that they take that day off of the calendar for early voting. So they're specifically going at the church, specifically going at the Black church, specifically going at African Americans to try to take away some of their avenues for voting. And as you know, the reason that it is so impactful and the reason that it's so significant is because in Georgia and in many other places, they've taken away polling places in Black communities, in urban communities. And so that in order to vote, it's not an easy process where you go to some places. When I go vote, it might take me, the worst case scenario, it might take me 15 minutes. I'm walking in, I'm voting, and I'm coming out because we have polling places everywhere. But when you go down to these other states, depending on where you are, but when you go down to these other states like Georgia, or you go to Florida, or you go to Texas, in the African American communities, in the urban communities, you may be standing in line for hours to vote. Now, if you got kids, if you got a job, if you just got things to do, you can't stand in line for hours and hours to vote, and you should not have to. It is a ridiculous proposition that in 2021 that you have to. We got cell phones, we got computers, we got 5G internet. We can make a virus in less than a year. I mean, an antivirus in less, a vaccine for a virus in less than a year. But yet it's going to take you 4 hours to vote. Man, that's crazy. And the reason it's crazy is because they're intentionally doing that to slow down the vote in that area. And so when we talk about early voting, and weekend voting, that is one of the ways to ameliorate that situation and make it so that there will be less people waiting 4 hours and they can vote early on. And that is why people are coming at that. And that is directly coming at the church. And I think that's why we should be involved. You're directly coming at the church and saying, look, your people your people should not be voting. The efforts that you make to ensure that your people have a voice in the Senate, we don't want that to occur. You know, I can't, for the life of me, understand why somebody would say that that's not the case. I mean, you know that it is. Now, whether you agree with the case or not, that's one thing. But to say that that's not the case, to say that they're not coming for African Americans, to say that they're not coming for the church, the Black church, I don't know why anybody would say that. Another comment. So if Republicans understand the power of the Black church, then the Black church must realize its power and exercise its power. Yes. And and I think that's the point in a key point is that there is power there. That, you know, some people say that the church doesn't have any power anymore. Some people say that the church isn't, you know, doesn't have what it used to have in the community, in the works that it does. There's some truth to that. But just because it doesn't have what it had doesn't mean it doesn't have any power. It doesn't mean that it can't get it back. And especially when you're talking about the church and you're talking about God, who has all power, you know, even with just a few of us. And so I think that the recognition of the power that we have needs to be, one, recognize the power, and then two, actually walk in the power. And I think what it does is that it shows these young people who may not necessarily be connected with the church or understand the church or believe in the church. It will show them that maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something that they're doing. We need to walk in the power that we're doing. You know, here we had a guest pastor come in, and he gave a word talking about authority. And talking about walking in God's authority. But one of the things that I think that was interesting that he spoke on, that goes directly with this comment here about the Black church and its power, is that it said, you know, when somebody walks into a place and they're talking with authority, you, as the person who's listening to them or seeing them, you see how they're acting, you see how they're holding themselves, and you see how they're talking. And because they're talking with authority, you expect something. And so their authoritative style brings a reaction out of you where you give them deference or you expect something from them. And so there is a responsibility of you not to just have your authority, but to also walk in your authority and let other people see it. Not in an arrogant way, not in some kind of way where you're just like, I'm better than you, or look, I got power, but you just walk in a way of where people expect something. And that's, you know, and I think that's not what's happening. Like, people don't expect as much from the Black church as they used to, because we may not be walking in that authority. We're, you know, for some of us, we're not walking in authority. We're just walking in very nice shoes, and we're walking into very nice cars, and we're walking into very nice homes. That's not authority. That's just the junk and the stuff that we got. And so as the movement goes on, as we walk into a legislative arena, we walk in before the politicians with our authority, then they expect that we have this power where, look, we need our rights. We need the rights of our people. We need the rights of Black and brown people. We need the rights of all people to be equal, or as equal as possible. And our authority is that we have the voting population to get things done. Our authority is, if you can't handle the homeless population or the people who are without in our community, then we will. And in the meantime, but then in November, when it comes back again to time to decide who's going to be in charge, we're going to flex our authority again then. And so I think that comment is very telling. Is that we really need to exercise our power. We really need to flex our muscle, and we really need to make sure that we show people the power that we have, because that's, you know, I think that's what people are looking for. You know, I don't think that folk are out here rioting because they have the answers. I think they're out here protesting and rioting because they're looking for the answers. They're crying out saying, hey, we need things to change. And the change agent, I believe, is the Black church. And so I believe that's where we're at. And so our time is gone, just like that. And so please join us again. I want to thank all the comments that came in. This was a great discussion. Hopefully you'll be able to join us again. We'll be here next week. This is Impact 2021. My name is Nathaniel, and thank you, and have a good one.